Hi everyone, my name is Eli and this is my persuasive speech. So, have you ever been driving and you come across a driver who is just not driving very well? Whether they're driving recklessly or they're driving too slow or they're just swerving in and out of lanes without a blinker or, whatever it may be. And how many times have you actually driven past the car and you look over and you see an elderly person behind the wheel? I know that I can say that this has happened quite a lot, and it's unfortunate because there is a real problem here. And that's why I think that when an individual turns 65 years old, they should be required to take a second driving test that can measure their driving capabilities and ultimately determine whether or not that they should be allowed to drive or continue to drive. Now, I'm not just saying this because, I've had a couple bad experiences with old people driving or something like that. There's a lot more to it. And in this speech, I'm going to go over, why it should happen, the benefits that can come from it, and what you can do to kind of act now. So everyone knows that as you grow older, you start to slow down. It's a process that no one can prevent. No one's immortal. Although there's things that you can do to, slow this process of deterioration, your lifestyle choices, how fit you stay, how healthy you are, any medical conditions that you may or may not have. That all plays a role, but, at one point or another, you start to slow down, and that's something that, it's going to happen no matter what. But where's the problem? The Pew Charitable Trust states that older drivers are at a higher risk of crashing than middle-aged drivers because of declining vision, hearing, and cognitive abilities, as well as any medical conditions that they have. Now, when I say medical conditions, in this instance, I'm not thinking of, major ones or serious ones, where obviously if someone was suffering from them, they wouldn't be driving. I'm talking about ones that they don't necessarily have a name, but, if someone was suffering from them, it could seriously impact their driving. Helpbuild.org lays out some of these conditions. So, for example, neck pain making it harder to look certain ways, leg pain that makes it difficult to move your leg from the gas to the brake, or vice versa. Your reaction time in general just slowing down, diminished arm strength that makes it hard to turn the steering wheel effectively, and many others. And when you look at these just by themselves, they don't seem that bad. If someone was suffering from just one of these things, it'd be pretty hard to make a case that they shouldn't be allowed to drive just because, it's just one of them. But a lot of the times when you're 65 years or older, you're not suffering from just one of these things, it's all of them, and then some. And that's where the real danger comes from. The Journal of Gerontology found that from 2000 to 2017, there was 110,000 drivers that were aged 65 and up that were involved in crashes that resulted in at least one death. And out of those 110,000, 67,000 of those drivers died. So that's over half of the elderly drivers that had died as a result of those accidents. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't want to be wicked harsh and accuse every single elderly person of being the sole, reason of every single one of those accidents, as I know that's not what happened, but I do believe that there were a majority of the time they were probably the reason. And this statistic is just accounting for crashes where someone had died. This doesn't even account for crashes where, someone ends up in serious condition and they broke, a lot of bones or stuff like that. And I'm sure that number is way higher. And, that's where the problem is. Now, if something like this was implemented, I think that everyone could benefit. Obviously there's going to be people that are going to have a problem with it. A majority of those people are going to be, the people who are 65 years old and, losing their ability to drive. But any inconvenience that's going to come from them losing, their ability to drive, I'm sure they'd rather, have that inconvenience than, going out on the road and ultimately, risking their life or others. It's a small price to pay. But if something like this was implemented, it'd be wicked easy to sort out who's 65 years old and still in good condition and, can continue driving, or who's 65 years old and should have gotten off the road, 5 years ago. It's going to make it so easy to kind of sort through those people and then go from there. And I think that, after 65 years, maybe they take another test every 5 years after that, just to kind of, keep going through and keep sorting until, the amount of elderly people on the road is, ultimately reduced to not zero, but if they're elderly and they shouldn't be on the road, then they're not on the road. So when it comes to what you can do now, something like this, there would have to be a law or something. So there's not much that you can do to kind of, impact how this law is implemented, if it ever is. But what you could potentially do is if you have older relatives, or older friends, older cousins, whatever it may be, and you know that, they're not in the best condition, maybe you offer to drive them around or just, run their errands for them, just so, just to take them off the road, and ultimately reduce that risk to, as zero or as close to zero as it could be. So yeah, thank you.